Okay. Let's see here. Let's copy that link and put it on Twitter, X, and let's let everyone know that I am here. Come on, the 7thCast is live. Come on, come on, come on. 7thCast is live. Come chat. Come on, come on. Narukami, what's going on, sir? Get that on there. Haha! Alright, so we got the Twitter X part figured out. We'll be going live here as soon as we get more than just you, Narukami. I'm doing alright. I have been enjoying my 3-day weekend by not doing jack. I haven't been doing nothing. I did play... Hi, Master Millions. I did play a little bit of actual gaming today. While I was waiting for it to be time to go pick 8th up from work. I played a little bit of... some game on Game Pass. I can't remember the name of it now. Dang it. It's an indie game. It's some kind of a... feels like it was heavily inspired by... a little bit of Zelda, a little bit of Earthbound, and it's called Ever something or something like that. It's got this little white-haired girl in it, and she's being taken care of by a Joel-type character named John, who walks around kicking the crap out of monsters with a frying pan. I played about an hour of that today. No, I have not played Starfield. Ugh. I have not played Starfield because it hasn't hit Game Pass yet. And I am not going to shell out money to buy a digital copy of a game. There's no point in buying it physically for Xbox because all you're buying is a blank disc with a license on it. You still end up having to download it off the network whether you got the disc or not. So what's the point in buying the physical when it comes to Xbox at this point? So I'm just going to wait for Game Pass. You notice... Day and date, same day, comes to Starfield in a few days. Love how Microsoft really sticks to the game plan, right? Hi, Collected G. How's it going? Hi, Nicholas. Yeah, I heard about CM Punk getting fired. I saw it coming, but that, I have never sat and watched an AEW show all the way through, and that pretty much cemented that was the right call for me. So, just came back from Five Guys. You know what? Honest truth, I have never ate at Five Guys, ever. There's one about 15 minutes up the road from me. The problem being, there's a Whataburger 2 blocks from me. So I'd rather go and get Whataburger 2 blocks from me than drive 15 minutes to get Five Guys and pay more for it. Because Whataburger is just that good. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We'll be starting in about 2 minutes. IGN gave Starfield a 7. You know what's funny about that? Yes, IGN gave Starfield a 7. You know who else did? GameSpot. Nobody's talking about GameSpot, though. Everyone's talking about IGN. IGN's not the only one that gave it less than an 8. Whataburger's better? Well, then I have no reason to regret not going to Five Guys. I've already been to In-N-Out Burger, so I already know that Whataburger is superior to In-N-Out. I just didn't know about Five Guys, but now that you've let me know, now I don't feel so bad about not having tested that theory for myself. The fact that Starfield is coming to Game Pass soon is telling something. Well, it was supposed to be the same day. Remember? That was Microsoft's whole deal with Game Pass. Same day, first day release for first party games. Well, guess what? I got to wait till Tuesday. For whatever reason, they didn't want people to be able to play it free on Labor Day weekend. Microsoft. I tell you. Can't trust a word that comes out of their mouth. False advertising. False. We'll be getting starting here just any minute now. All right. It is Saturday. It is 7 o'clock. We normally start at 6, but today we started at 7 because I just felt like it. No, I had a valid reason. But this is the 7thCast. As always, I'm your venerable host, your friendly neighborhood 7th. 8th is in his room doing 8 things. It's possible he might show up in the chat this evening. It's possible that he won't. Such is the enigma that is 8th. So, as a quick reminder, even though there's not that many people in here yet, this and next week are the last weeks that you can help support my trip to Retropalooza on the 15th. And let me see, where were we at with that? I don't remember. I don't remember at all. Let me find out. Let's see, where were we at with that? Open says me. Hate that thing. All right. Well, shoot. I never did tally it up. What is the matter with me? All right, so... Well, okay. We are $160 short of the goal. I thought we were closer than that, but we're not. We're $160 short of the goal, which would technically mean that for us to reach the goal, there'd have to be $80 in donations tonight and next Saturday. I don't think that's going to happen. But, you know, this is the only way that I can fund stuff for the show. Yeah, I don't get anything in advertising money, and I don't do sponsorships because I just don't believe in it. I don't believe in doing sponsorships at all. I'd rather just have direct support for the fans. I can't consciously approve of shilling somebody else's product. Cheers. Now, One Piece. I'm not shaking my head because I hated it. I'm shaking my head because of how shocked I am by the fact that I liked it as much as I did. This is not something that I have come to expect from Netflix. But I have since found out that the original creator of One Piece, whose name I don't remember, I apologize, was there every step of the way when it came to crafting the script, helping them with looking at the casting, the costume design, all of it. And it shows. It shows. Now you're going to have some folks that are going to go down the whole get woke, go broke thing because... Luffy is played by someone of Hispanic or Latino origin. and Yanni's sister, the blue-haired one whose name I can never remember, her sister is played by an African-American woman instead of a Japanese girl or a pasty white girl. Neither of those things matter worth a flip in this show. And one reason is because the creator of One Piece has stated in an interview that when comparing the world of One Piece to the real world, that Luffy would have been from Brazil. So it's perfect casting. I hate to break that to you, but it's perfect casting. And he does a great job with it too. He is funny. And he puts real heart into it, and just enough of the right level of crazy for Luffy. He's not as quick to lose his temper and blow his top as Luffy is in the original anime, but he is pretty close to he's accurate to the manga as far as the way he acts and the way he speaks and whatnot. And I marathoned the whole thing. 8th watched some of it with me, and 8th is a real stickler for accuracy when it comes to adapting anime and manga, especially being adapted by Western producers. And it took him a little while to warm up to their version of Luffy, but he was as surprised as I was. He enjoyed it too. So, shockingly, it gets a thumbs up from me. I think you should watch it. It's the first Netflix anime adaptation that doesn't suck. It's actually good. It's worth watching, and it does right by the material. It blends the idea of One Piece with a sort of Pirates of the Caribbean film franchise vibe, and I think that's a fantastic mix, and it works really well. I was really, really happy with it. There's one or two CGI effects that could have used a little more work, and there's a couple of the makeup effects that don't quite do it for me, but overall I was very satisfied with it. And it's the first time in a long time where I've watched a streaming original show and was actually finding myself upset by the fact that I'd already finished it and there weren't more episodes to watch. And I don't say that often. So yeah, if you're a fan of One Piece, or even if you've never gotten into One Piece and you just want a fun, funny, swashbuckling kind of thing with some heart to it, go watch One Piece. Go watch it. It's good. I mean, when even a guy like Your Mother's Basement on YouTube loves it as much of a stickler for anime quality and accuracy as he is, and he loved it, you know it's the stuff. It's the goods. Go check it out. Now, when I put in the topic that we'd be discussing Trey for Life episode 2, it was more. I didn't have any specific points about the episode. I really just wanted to get y'all's opinion on what you did and didn't like about the episode and what have you. So we can just factor that into the Q&A. The main thing I wanted to let you guys know was that, One Piece is legit. Go watch it. I have not played Starfield because I'm not going to pay for it. I'll play it when it's on Game Pass in 2 days. I just love how they waited for Labor Day weekend to be over before putting it on Game Pass so I don't get to play it for 3 days. Microsoft, you freaking hacks. All right, now let me catch up with the chat real quick. Hello, Juggernauts. Yeah, I mean, Starfield is exactly what you should come to expect from a Bethesda game, only it has even less of a feel of awe and exploration, because instead of having this massive map where you're going to be, you can, like in Skyrim, where over every corner it seems like you're finding this fantastic castle or subterranean cave realm and all this stuff. You know, this sense of awe and discovery and exploration. You're not going to get that here because you're just fast traveling to a planet, picking a spot on the planet. It puts you in a big fish bowl and points out, you know, go here, go here, go here. That's what it is. So it's like typical Bethesda game mixed with a little bit of Mass Effect and mixed with a little bit of No Man's Sky, which is what I said it was going to be. So I was right. Oh, and they've thrown in Jedi / space powers, space magic. And remember when, you know, if those of you who follow me on Twitter, when the gameplay trailer came out, I said, well, it looks like you're going to be getting Jedi powers, so much for the realism thing. And some guy attacked me on there. It is like, you're just an idiot. You could clearly see he turns the gravity off with his watch. Well, guess what? Magic space powers in Starfield. I was right. That guy can kiss my ass. So, let's catch up. Happy Autumn 7th, best season of all. I can't say that you're wrong, although it's not that big of a deal in Texas. It meant more when I lived in Tennessee. Wetting my whistle with some iced tea. So, I don't care about gaming services. I'll be a console gamer until the end. Well, soon. In case you hadn't noticed, console gaming is transitioning to be service gaming. All that hype, and look how it turned out. Did you see the looking trees? Yeah. And every planet has the same enemy types. Very copy and paste. I mean, What's up, 7th? Hey, Ultra Steel, how's it going? Nami is my favorite character. They cover Nami's backstory, and some of it is legit. There's a few onions in the room kind of situation. There's some legit heartstring pulling moments in this show. You know, it's not done up for yucks. It's not one of those shows where it misunderstands that just because there's goofy comedy in the show doesn't mean that there's not real emotion and real drama in the show. Yeah, it understands the mix of what One Piece was. So, you know, there's real, you know, break your heart moments in this show. That'll make you, you know, got a little sand in my eye there. Oh. The whole cast of One Piece is so lovely. I think it's a great show. I really do. No BS. And I honestly thought that it was just going to be another Cowboy Bebop and that it was going to suck. And my jaw just kept dropping from scene to scene to scene. And I was like, they got that right. Holy crap, they got that right. Holy crap, they referenced something that in the anime and the manga was only spoken of. It wasn't even shown on screen or depicted on the page. It was just mentioned. What a cool way to introduce that character. Wow. Hey, they got that right too. It's just moment after moment after moment like that. Yes, they've juggled some things around so they could fit more into each season, but it works. It really works. And I hope that it gets the views that it deserves so we get multiple seasons of it. I really do. Tony Khan said he felt his life and his securities were in danger. Must have been a bad situation. Is this the final countdown till Retropalooza? This night and next Saturday are the final countdown. These are the last two shots for, greetings, 7th. Long time no see. What do you think of Volition shutting down? Who didn't see that coming? Who didn't see it coming? They were going through financial hardship, so to try to cause a stock surge, they hopped on that ESG bandwagon, and it alienated their fans. They attacked their fans for not embracing their new progressive take on Saints Row, which was god awful, and it bit them in the backside. What'd you expect to happen? The minute they showed the first trailer for that game, I knew exactly what it was going to result in. I knew that was the death knell for that studio. How could you be that stupid? Your previous games gave you the option of running around beating people to death with a dildo saber. And then the next game, you have people walking around talking about their carbon footprint and climate change. And it's not sarcastic. It's not sarcastic. It's not satire. It's legit. What did you think would happen? That's why I hope that with Grand Theft Auto 6, Rockstar isn't stupid enough to do the same thing. I hope they'll learn their lesson from watching what happened to Saints Row. Ho, ho, ho. I couldn't tell you which one has better exploration, Raymond, because I haven't played Starfield yet. But based on what others have told me, I would say that No Man's Sky has better exploration. Hear about Charles Martinet retiring from voicing Mario. Man's getting up in years. Let me tell you something. I would imagine that eventually Peter Cullen is going to either retire as Optimus or die while playing Optimus. He's in his 80s, so just be watching for it. Thoughts on Steam bundling the Saints Row reboot for $30 along with Saints Row 3 for free? Well, you're getting one good game. You're really paying for two games and getting one good one. What'd you give Sea of Stars? I haven't played it yet. Hi, Chris G. How's it going? What is this ESG and why are companies bending over backwards? ESG, it's a big corporation that deals with regulation with stock and stuff. It's heavily involved in a company called BlackRock, and basically they've come out and said that their rating system, as far as like recommending a stock for purchase or whatnot, from now on, one of the things that they're going to rate you on is how progressive you are, and if you're suitably progressive, then they will be more inclined to recommend your stock as a buy. And that's the real reason why you see all these companies destroying all these franchises with all this politics that they're throwing in it. It's because they're trying to appease ESG, because if they can't get their profits up by actually selling their product, they're hoping that ESG boosts them so they have stock purchase instead. And that's what happened with Volition. Oh. I would have donated $1,500, but my brother tricked me out of $1,500. You wouldn't have donated $1,500 to me. Don't do that, man. Don't do that. Anyone playing Assassin's Creed 6 on PC using Plitch? Plitch? I only wanted to experiment with infinite flying, and it feels amazing, but obviously I'm not using Plitch to advance just for I don't even know what Plitch is. I don't deal with the PC stuff, man. I play on Steam just tiny little bit like that, just itty bitty. I'm mostly console. 8th is the Steam player, not me. Mario, I'm sure, isn't a hard voice to audition for. I mean, even Chris Pratt proved in an interview that he could do the Mario voice. You know, he did the Mario voice live in an interview on some morning show. But that's not the direction they went for with the movie. But, I mean, if he can do that voice, anybody can do that voice. Do you miss the 6th generation of consoles? PS2, GameCube, OG Xbox. Definitely miss PS2. Not so much the other two. I mean, I like Xbox, and I have a handful of games that I liked on GameCube. But for the most part, that generation, I was a PS2 guy. And it's literally every week I could walk into a game store and there'd be just a whole rack of new releases for PS2. It was ridiculous. And there was always at least one that I wanted. It was astounding. And it hasn't been that way with any generation since. Seventh, have you heard of a band called Sixpence None the Richer? Yes. They started out as kind of a Christian band and then went secular. Thoughts on the Spider-Verse movies? Don't think that much of them because I don't like the glitchy frame rate. You know, I want smooth 24 frames per second. And this, we're CG, but we kind of want it to look like it's stop motion crap. I don't like it. Never have. I will build a Hornet mech just like in Cowboys. Okay, but why are they doing it in the laziest way possible with the race swaps and whatnot? Because they don't know any better. They don't know any other way to do it because their writers, for the most part nowadays, are hacks. Talentless hacks. Hi, Bill Bones. I've never heard the term bad actor used without the film or TV sense till recently. Have you heard that phrase? I've heard people refer to like shady people as bad actors. Like, don't do any business with so and so. He's a bad actor. I've heard it used that way. Are you concerned on songs direction lately? Modern music is garbage. Rock music hasn't been worth a crap since around 2010, 2011. Yeah, once we got to the point where you had bands like Imagine Dragons out there and Fall Out Boy abandoned their punk roots, and everything started going in that stomp clap haze style, where everything's and people clapping and hey. It started out as kind of a folk thing, and then Imagine Dragons rockified it, and then everyone started copying Imagine Dragons, and so now everything's garbage. All of the hip hop and rap that's coming out now is all these scrawny little dudes with tattoos all over their face on SoundCloud and TikTok. Makes me really miss the days of Wu-Tang and NWA and all that, rap bands and rap groups, rap acts that had balls. These new guys. Now my son loves Post Malone and whatever, but some of these dudes. Thoughts on the PlayStation Plus price increase? Well, I pay for my PlayStation Plus annually. I don't pay for it by the month. And so for me, it's going to be a $30 a year increase. In other words, $2.50 a month. I think I'll be okay, guys. I think I'll be okay. Plus, I'd already paid for mine before they made this announcement, so I'm good for a whole year. Should Nintendo remake Link to the Past? They kind of already have. Yeah, just like, yeah. What's your favorite Game Boy Advance SP games? Sega put out a lot of good RPG stuff on the Advance. And I liked the Castlevania games on Advance a lot. I liked Guardian Heroes on the Advance. I liked Gunstar Superheroes. The Mario, what were they? The Mario Superstar games or whatever, the turn-based RPGs. Those were really good. The Minish Cap was really good. Let's see here. Hey, you. I don't like your girlfriend. I was never a fan of Avril Lavigne. Didn't do anything for me. But then again, I didn't have anything for Gwen Stefani after she left No Doubt neither. So, I mean, are you concerned about Sony's direction with services being raised and You can't say I didn't warn you. I told you guys this was going to happen all the way back in 2010. I saw all of this coming. I knew it was going to happen. And I knew that it was going to be Microsoft that would popularize it, and then everybody else, except possibly Nintendo, would follow suit. Who's greedier, Sony or Disney? Oh, Disney. Disney by far. It's not even close. I don't think you realize how many companies Disney actually owns. It's ridiculous. You have no idea how much influence Disney has on American and even world culture. You have no inkling of how deep it goes. It's insane. Legit. Take it from somebody who used to work for them. It's insane. Since it's September, what song about September do you like more? Earth, Wind, and Fires or I hate that song by Green Day. I like Green Day, but I like old Green Day. I don't like the When September Ends Green Day, and I certainly don't like that newest album where Armstrong doesn't even sound like himself. Oh, that was some good tea. Now it's on to the bottles of water. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 7th, do you think at this point El Presidor's laugh deserves to be stock footage, just like the famous Wilhelm scream? I know a lot of folks that still regularly use his laugh as an audio cue. Black Bond is just one of them. It's a popular effect, even though he doesn't laugh like that anymore in his videos. I'm so thirsty. Which is weird because I don't usually get thirsty. I normally have to remind myself to drink fluids because I don't normally get thirsty. But I come in here to do the 7th cast and suddenly I can't get enough fluids. If I'm sitting out in the game room watching a movie or watching a show or playing games, I can go hours without having a drink. Eighth will come in and remind me, you need to go get a bottle of water. Because I don't remember to drink. I don't get thirsty. But when I come in here, I always bring 2 bottles of water and a glass of tea because I know that for whatever reason, I'm going to be constantly thirsty. Maybe it's because I'm talking so much. I don't know. And it dries my mouth out. I don't know. How would you rank the handheld Castlevania games on GBS? Some of the best Castlevania games there are. I like one Avril Lavigne song. I have never been a fan of anything she's done. Oh yeah, I'm not a big coffee drinker. I used to be in my early 20s, late teens to early 20s, because there wasn't a whole lot to do in Chattanooga for a teenage person who wasn't old enough to get into the clubs yet, and so everyone would go to Waffle House and drink coffee on Friday nights and Saturday nights. That was the big hangout place. Everybody go to Waffle House and sit there for hours drinking coffee. Used to piss the people at Waffle House off too, because they weren't making any money off that. They just keep, you'd pay for a cup of coffee and they just keep coming and pouring you more coffee, and you'd sit there all night long and take up all the booths. Meanwhile, they're not selling any food. They're not making any money. It'd piss them off, but there was nowhere else in town to go. Games for collecting GameCube been expensive for a long time, like Zelda Twilight Princess. Yeah, well, that's GameCube for you. It was not as big a seller as PS2 or even Xbox, and therefore there aren't as many copies out there to purchase of these games, and so they go up in price. Meanwhile, you could still get OG Xbox games, most of them for cheap. A lot of the PS2 library too. Much easier to collect for. PS2 and Xbox. Let's see. Prez has a varying degree of maniacal to his laugh depending on what he's doing. That's true. Did you put a spirit of lemon in that tea? No, I drink my lemon. I drink my lemon. I drink my tea straight. No artificial sugars. No regular sugar. No lemon. No nothing. It's just straight tea. I don't even put ice in it. That way I get more actual tea in the glass. Would you describe most of the Trey Brotherhood members as manly nerds? Because some of those skits in your video were goofy but had a strange charm to them. I first saw you in the early 2010s. Manly nerds. No, it was mostly just guys that had fun messing with people. Like I've been saying in the episodes, a lot of the people that were in the Trey Brotherhood were casual gamers that just really liked messing with people and pushing people's buttons. Solid Rev has slowly evolved to being closer to what you would consider a nerd, but because I've gotten to somewhat know him online, and I know what he does for a living and whatnot, yeah, that man is not a nerd. He's not a nerd. He's become nerdier as he's gotten older, but I still wouldn't call him a nerd. He's a guy who, typical Southern Florida rednecky guy who just happens to like some nerdy things. And El Presidor was just, he's a mentally unbalanced individual who likes to mess with people for fun. You had guys like that, and then you had a smaller group within the Trey Brotherhood who were actual Sony fanboys and gaming nerds. Like The Truth Setting You Free, Glock Ninja, etc. Now, Laren Von Baron, he never claimed to be a member of the Brotherhood, but he tried to kind of get himself involved in the new splintered group that Truth Setting You Free was trying to get going when they got into the whole Gamers Union thing. So Wipeout would be enough. Now Wipeout could troll some. He could get trollish, but he was more of a gaming collector, pro Sony gaming nerd fanboy. General G, troll. Humpmaster Flex, troll. Me, I straddled the line. I was a troll who also was a lifelong gamer and a big Sony supporter, but I wasn't a fanboy. So I was like, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. That's kind of what set me apart from the others. Yes, I worked for Disney for 2 years. No, I have not seen Barbie. Wii U games are still real cheap. Yeah, you'll think so until you try to go get yourself a copy of Devil's Third, which I have sitting on my shelf. Because I was smart enough to pre-order it because I knew exactly what was going to happen with that game. Rev is 6'6". Yes, he is. Did you trim your hair? No, I did not trim my hair. It's just hanging over a black shirt. And I have it tucked backwards behind my ears instead of hanging over my ears. Thoughts on Sony increasing the price? I already mentioned that, man. Like, not 5 minutes ago. Who do you think would win in a fight? Baron or Solid Rev? Solid Rev would drop him like a bad habit. Baron knows how to perform sports entertainment. Rev knows how to break a man physically and spiritually. How often do you clean your retro consoles? If I haven't been playing it, once every couple of weeks. 7th, do you think the technology of video games can get so advanced in the far future that when you play video games, time stops in the... No. Getting a little too out there, Ultra Steel. Baron is a pro wrestler, so I would on T want to get into a scuffle with him. Oh, okay. If you could have fought anybody in the Xbox Republic in a boxing fight, who would it have been and why? Nobody really springs to mind. You know, there wasn't anybody on the Xbox side who were these, big bulked out beasts like El Presidor and Solid Rev. Although, which you will see, when Solid Rev first started in the Trey Brotherhood, he was not this massive bulked up dude, okay? He was still 6'6", but he was thin. He was in shape, but he didn't have these bulging biceps and all that stuff. He was thin. And you're going to see that in some of the videos I end up showing. He bulked up over time. And it's my understanding that he had been bulked and buffed up before, but by the time that he had started doing the YouTube videos, he had let all the working out go. And so he was in shape, he was fit, but he didn't have the mass. He was thin. He was a tall, skinny guy. And you're going to see that. You can kind of see it in the little clip I showed of him doing the effeminate truth setting you free impersonation. You could see it in his face in that video that he was a lot thinner. What will episode 3 be about? Episode 3... I have magic powers. Episode 3 is basically going to be taking you through all the major players of the El Presidor era of the Trey Brotherhood and just kind of explaining who they were, what their style and their methods were, who some of their most biggest battles were with, etc., etc., setting the stage. And then starting with episode 4, you're going to be getting into the actual sagas, like the El Baracho saga, the Zephyrnik saga, the Samuel the Geek saga, the Trey Civil War saga, and the Gamers Union saga, the false flagging saga, and so on and so forth. Yes, I have a CRT, Master Millions. I showed the CRT in my most recent Game Room Tour video, which lets me know that you didn't watch it. Exposed. I don't know, Seventh. A few years ago, I think AI would have been far-fetched to me. Ultra Steel, video gaming is never going to be able to stop time. I'm sorry. It's not. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to make fun of you, Ultra Steel, but for me, that's like saying, I think 20 years from now, when we sit down to play Grand Theft Auto, it's going to have integrated Star Trek replicator technology that'll actually make a hooker's head appear over my crotch and start sucking me off while I'm playing the game. No. No. And games being able to stop time while you play them is as least likely, if not far more. Okay? Hi, 8th. General G was my favorite Trey member. Thank you for making those videos. Excited to see more. Well, you'll see one on Monday. At Lord 8th, I like your tattoo. Resident Evil is cool. Stop trolling 8th, Ultra Steel. Stop trolling 8th. You should see the one on his other arm, though. It's fantastic replication of the best character in Steven Universe. Thumbs up. I never get notifications on new videos. Well, that's why you should get into the one, make sure that you have all notification of all activity turned on for my channel, for one. And two, you need to be checking my channel regularly every Tuesday, because I use Monday. If I'm going to post a video, Monday is when it goes up. So you should be checking it on Tuesday to see if anything new is on the channel. It's not that hard, son. What I'm saying, Ultra Steel, is there's a difference between adding augmented reality to a game or increasing the immersion of a game and game systems being so powerful that they break the laws of physics. Let's try to be a little bit more realistic, okay? A flux capacitor is never going to be an add-on for your PlayStation 50. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Not much, Jacob. Not much. Same old, same old. So, for those of you who did watch episode 2 of Trey for Life, what did you really like about it, and what did you not like about it? Were there some things that I could have done better, things that you didn't feel were a good fit for the episode, etc., etc.? Let me know. Because if nothing else, I want to make sure that I keep making them a little bit better with each episode. Yeah, but Ultra Steel, that's the thing. If you're a gamer, if you're really a gamer, you won't consider playing video games and I quote, waste of a lot of time. Seems like you really need to have a deep conversation with yourself. With yourself. I haven't even seen the new DeLorean. Couldn't care less about it. Couldn't care less. What's happening 7th and 8th? Same old, my friend. Same old, same old. Have you played Texas? No, because I don't like that style of game. I don't like this, asynchronous online multiplayer where, one guy is playing the villain and the other are the victims and they're trying to set up traps and all that. Dead by Daylight and Friday the 13th, that all, Evil Dead the game, all of that can kiss my ass. I don't care about any of those. Not at all. That style of gameplay does nothing for me. And I'll tell you why. Because it's another instance of my gaming experience and my gaming entertainment being strictly dictated by the quality of the people that I end up in the game with. Now, if everyone that you're playing with is a friend and you have a, like a Friday the 13th party or something, then I could kind of see that. Because then, no matter how bad the game is, you're laughing and cutting up with your friends, so some entertainment could be derived there. But otherwise, screw that genre. Don't care about it at all. I'm giving 8th a chance to answer all the questions that just popped up in a row in the chat for him. It tends to happen when he pops into the chat. People love to know what 8th thinks about various things. Which 8th is a lot more open to conversation in the chat than he is in real life. You meet 8th in real life, you're going to get very short, concise answers, maybe a nod or a grunt. That's what you're going to get. He's a man of few words. Oh. Seventh, do you think new video games will use AI to reach near perfect realistic graphics? No. Especially not when now they're saying that SAG-AFTRA has got to go on strike. So all the voice actors are going to go on strike. And why? Because they don't want their performances replaced by AI. And there will be devs out there who don't want their work replaced by AI, and they'll go on strike too. I could see big corporations trying to adopt and force-feed AI into game development and it causing another market crash because all of the developers that they rely on just abandoning them in droves to go form indie studios. I could see that happening. Seventh, do you know what your favorite year of video games was? Probably 1992. Because in 1992, I had a Sega Genesis with numerous games for it. I had a Super Nintendo with numerous games for it. And I still had my NES with some of my all-time favorites on it. So I was kind of in hog's heaven in 1992. Plus, there was a lot of great arcade games floating around in 1992 as well. And there was, we weren't quite to the golden PC era yet. Doom hadn't come out, but as I recall, Wolfenstein was. Wolfenstein 3D. and X-Wing TIE Fighter was out. So there was a lot of cool stuff happening on PC as well in that era, but we hadn't quite had the full-on explosion that was brought on by Doom. I don't think we've reached photorealism and graphics yet, Living Legend. Not even close. They are more realistic, but they're still heavily in the uncanny valley. I think the closest to it, as far as like facial animation and whatnot, has so far been Naughty Dog, but I think we've got a good ways to go yet. But the thing of it is, the closer you get to photorealism, the less of an advance you're going to see from generation to generation as far as how the graphics look. And we're kind of already there now. That's why people look at Spider-Man 2 and they say, oh, it just looks like Spider-Man 1. Or people look at God of War Ragnarok, oh, it just looks like God of War. It's because visually the frame rate is better and the quality of the textures and the lighting is better, but there hasn't been a whole lot of advance in the graphical design per se. You know what I'm saying? That's why you can compare Starfield to Fallout 4 and you can see definite improvements in texture quality and lighting and whatnot, but it still looks like Fallout 4 because they haven't, for one thing, from generation to generation, the gaps visually aren't as noticeable, but also because their Create Engine 2 isn't really that much of a leap over Create Engine 1, and so you still have these lifeless mannequins that don't really emote all that much outside of an occasional eyebrow that goes up and down and their mouths moving. Seriously, man, Bethesda has always been behind everyone else when it comes to the facial animation. And that's one of the reasons why, they can improve the textures and they can improve the frame rate and they can improve this and that. As long as they aren't getting their character designs up to snuff, they're still going to look behind everybody else. Hi, Farb. How's it going? Who's more crooked and corrupt, GameStop, Microsoft, or Sony? Microsoft, because they have their fingers in more things than Sony or GameStop does. All right. The biggest leap was PS2 to PS3. I doubt we'll ever get a leap that big again. I don't know, man. I think the leap from Genesis and Super Nintendo to PS1 was a pretty giant leap. An incredibly huge leap. Can you rattle off the games you're going to have the chance to play after Retropalooza? Well, I have the chance to play lots of stuff. The ones that I'm wanting to play, of course, are Starfield. And I want to try that Atlas Fallen game, even though everyone's telling me it's garbage. I want to try it. Diablo 4. Haven't played any of Diablo 4 so far. Baldur's Gate 3. I want to play Baldur's Gate 3. There's, basically all the big summer releases after Final Fantasy 16. Because Final Fantasy 16 was the last game that I bought. I haven't bought anything since Final Fantasy 16. So everything that came after that, that's what I want to play. Because I haven't played any of it. It's going all right. YouTube just put your live stream in my recommended, so it's finally doing its job. Good. You know what else can affect that, guys? And make it more likely? I mean, one, you have to make sure that you have me set to notify you of all new content. Two, when you watch something of mine, don't just watch like 5 minutes of it and go off. Watch the whole thing from start to finish. And three, hit the like button. When you hit the like button, you're telling the algorithm, I like videos from this guy, send me more. If you watch it but you don't hit the like button, I may show up in your recommended, I may not. And if you think you're helping a creator by pulling up a video of theirs that you don't really have any interest in, but you want to give them a view, so you pull it up, you let it load for a couple of minutes, and then you back out of it, you're not really helping that creator. Because what you're telling the algorithm is only the first 2 minutes of this video are worth watching. So if you're going to try to support a creator to watch their stuff, if you click on it, commit to watching the whole thing start to finish. Otherwise, you're hurting them more than you're helping them. Just letting you know. Not saying any of you are doing that to me, but at the same time, episode 2 of the Trey Brotherhood, or Trey for Life, is 22 minutes long, and the average view time was 6.5 minutes. I'm just saying. Weird that Ocarina of Time looked worse than Mario 64, even though it came out in 98. Mario, on the whole, had much smaller levels. They were a lot more contained. And so that's less stress on the N64, so you get smoother gameplay, better frame rate, which means that, you know, the graphics are going to be smoother, they're going to look a little sharper, a little better. The environments in Ocarina of Time were much larger, especially when you got into the temples. And so, yeah, everything was going to take a chug compared to Mario 64. I heard Final Fantasy 16 is getting paid DLC. Doesn't surprise me. I don't even have notifications on my tablet for YouTube. That's weird. I have it on my phone, so if I have it on my phone, you should have it on your tablet. I go to my YouTube, and if I go to home, I go to my home on here, the stuff that's directly under whatever I have set for the normal setting is all the stuff that it's recommending to me, whether it be shorts or topics that it thinks that I'm going to like. And I just scroll down through it, and it shows me, it froze on me. Stupid piece of crap. There we go. And it just starts showing me the stuff that it's recommending to me based on what I've watched before. And then down here, I can go to subscriptions, and it'll show me, subscriptions, because when I subscribe to somebody, I set it to notify me on every new piece of content that they do, whether it's just a video or a short or whatever, and so I get all of it. Have you had the chance to check out Sea of Stars yet? No, I downloaded it, but I haven't had a chance to play it. I was intending to try it out tonight after the 7th cast. Chris, I have terrible ADD. I think I'm responsible for the episode with Trey Brotherhood's low watch time. Well, one view isn't going to give me an average of 6 minutes watch per view. I'm sorry. It's not quite how that works. I have notifications toggled off because I get them for Gmail and Twitter so much. Does your Xbox One review still get views? It was funny. Yes, it still gets views, and it still gets comments. iPhone versus Galaxy. I've had both. I prefer Android platform. I don't like the Apple platform very much. I will be playing Pumpkin Jack in a few weeks. I hope they make a sequel. I do too. I still haven't finished Pumpkin Jack. I was planning on doing it for Halloween. That whatever my closest off day to Halloween was, I was going to finish off Pumpkin Jack. Do I have any samurai swords lying around? No, Fona Infinity. I don't have any samurai swords. No katanas. None of that. I have a 9mm over in my closet, but of course I can't show that on camera or YouTube will, slap me in the knuckles with a ruler. Seventh, thoughts on the Abyss movie by James Cameron. Absolutely insane the way they filmed that and the stuff that they put up with it. Absolute classic must-see movie. And a lot of the modern CG and FX things that we enjoy today started with that movie. So, it's very influential. And I like it a lot. I think a lot of people don't like it because they get claustrophobic and they don't want to watch a movie where, they spend most of it either deep underwater in suits or walking around in these narrow, cramped corridors of an underwater base. So they get claustrophobic from watching it. I don't have that problem. Again, if there was anything about Trey for Life episodes 1 or 2 that you feel could have been improved, please let me know. Do you like that do you like the fact that I've been kind of framing the time frame a little bit and referencing things that kind of inspired this or that, like how I had the commercial for the Weeble Wobbles in there and mentioning what the number one movie at the box office was at the time that this was going on, that kind of stuff. Do you like that kind of thing that kind of frames the time frames of some of this kind of deal? A Resident Evil 4 remake stream would be dope. Well, me and 8th have been talking about changing the format of the 7th cast to where, now this isn't a definite, but a maybe, where it's me talking on camera, but instead of being full screen like I am now, I'd be down in the corner and most of the display would be 8th playing a game while I talk. So if you guys would like that format change for the 7th cast, then toss me an F in the comments, in the chat. Will you see the Napoleon movie with Joaquin Phoenix this October? No. No, that won't be one that I would go to the theater to see. Not unless 8th wanted to see it. If 8th wanted to see it, I'd go see it with him. But otherwise, I would just wait for it to hit a streaming platform I have. Favorite 2 Castlevania games? Symphony of the Night and probably Curse of the Moon on Game Boy Advance. I will go through those 2 episodes soon, start to finish. I know nothing about that period of YouTube, so it'll be cool to learn about Wild West YouTube. Oh, you haven't watched any of them yet, Bill. I see how you are. I got to see The Abyss then. By the way, I like your format for the Trey Brotherhood video so far. As for you providing context with references, weeble wobble, I think it's good that you show what you're referring. Okay. Yeah, it's F for pay your respects. If you like the idea of that potential new format for the 7thCast of me being down in the corner, seeing me in the corner and hearing me talk and answer your questions while being able to watch 8th play a game, let us know. Skip to your question. Do you know your most successful video? Yes. It was the DBTS of the Xbox One. It has over 1.2 million views. And I will point out that not taking anything away from El Presidor, but during his reign of the Trey Brotherhood, he didn't have a video that broke 1 million views like yours truly. I'm just saying. All right, Chris, see you later. Thank you for not watching the whole stream and affecting me on the algorithm. I'm just messing with you, Chris. I know you'll come back and watch the rest of it later. Will Fat Gamer and Drone Crusher make an appearance in Trey Brotherhood? If they do, they won't show up until Season 2. Because they weren't involved during the El Presidor era. I think that, from Ultra Steel, I think that new format of the 7thCast sounds cool, but I'll be honest, 8th and you can have busy schedules, so I don't expect the cast to always include you both, but it is a neat idea. Well, we would factor it around 8th's off-day schedule. I have the same off days every week. I have banking hours. So, it's all going to revolve around 8th's schedule. I love that stuff, 7th. Add in more stuff like that in the videos. Gotcha. Up. Y'all didn't remind me. 2 hours remaining. 2 hours remaining. There have been 0 donations. 0. Told y'all we weren't going to average $80 a night for the next 2 shows. I told you that wasn't going to happen. Nope. I'm going to have to be doing things lean and mean at Retropalooza. Magic powers induced. How many eras are there of the console wars and what are they called? Well, remember, I'm framing the console wars around the Trey Brotherhood. Okay? So the Trey Brotherhood era of the console war is basically split into 2 eras. The El Presidor era and the me era. Because the El Presidor era goes for 2 years up until the point where he decided he was going to do Call of Duty for Machinima and handed me the Trey Brotherhood to piss off the truth setting you free. And so then from there on until I retired it was the me era. And the me era ran from 2010 until somewhere between 2014 and 2016. I can't remember exactly when I actually said live we're not doing the Trey thing anymore. But Unofficially, it would have ended with the DBTS of the Xbox One, because that's the last video I can remember doing that was pure on console war type stuff. And that was in December of 2013. So it's during the me era where you would see Black Baron and Drone Crusher and Fat Gamer and Omega Loser and Crap Gamer and who else during that era? Dark Cloud 1983, MVP Deadly Assassin New York. That would be all part of the 7th era. Yes, El Presidor eventually handed it to me because he didn't want to do it anymore, and he wanted to piss off the Truth Setting You Free, who was trying to set up his own faction at the time. El Presidor would never stream with me because, one, he wouldn't know how to pull it off from a technical level, and two, chances are he doesn't even remember who I am at this point. That was 14 years ago. And, his mind is not exactly normal as it is. So, will you cover the Trey Civil War? Yes, that will be one of the sagas in the the El Presidor era. 7th, do you prefer getting to know the world of a fictional property by being thrown right into it, or would you rather discover and figure out the story and world slowly, piece by piece? I don't like doing research on a property before I start watching it, reading it, whatever, because you run into the very strong possibility of spoiling things for yourself. Imagine if you've never watched a Star Wars movie and you start reading like Star Wars encyclopedia or whatever to get to know all the lore before getting into it, and you get to the page on Luke Skywalker and it tells you Luke Skywalker is the son of Anakin Skywalker who became Darth Vader. Well, you've just ruined a bunch of shit for yourself. So no, I jump head first into it. Dark Cloud hasn't made any new videos lately. No, he is not. Acid Snake is MIA too. Yeah, but at least their channels still exist. A lot of these guys are long gone. Like, their channels are gone and everything. Like, there was a guy that a lot of you, I would imagine, won't remember, who, he never got to the numbers of, like, me or Rev or any of them. But us in the Brotherhood got a laugh out of him. And his name was, his YouTube name was Mr. Who Gives a F. That was his actual YouTube name, Mr. Who Gives a F. Only it wasn't F. I'm trying to not get the 7thCast demonetized here, okay? And he had a lot of battles with Reston and El Baracho and some others. And his stuff, there's only like one video left where he's making fun of El Baracho, a.k.a. 8-Bit Joker. And it's not even on, his channel doesn't exist anymore. It's on one of these archive channels that I found while I was doing all this research and digging. But there's a lot of guys like that where either they've deleted all of their console war stuff and they do totally different things now, like Samuel to Geek. He had some of his console war stuff is still there, but it would appear that all of the videos he did about El Presidor are gone. And some of that is because Samuel was a much different person back then than he is now. Nowadays, he's a grown man. And he's very conscious and aware of society, and where he's very involved in his local politics and whatnot. But back during the Trey Brotherhood era, he was a 17, 18-year-old kid. And he was a much more sensitive, easily hurt person. But he thought that he was, king crap on Turd Hill when it came to his content. In other words, back then, totally different person, but back then Samuel could dish it out, but he couldn't take it. And so there were several instances where Sam would be engaged in debating or what have you with somebody, and they would make fun of him, and he would try to get them demonetized. He would try to get the video flagged down, or one of his cronies that worked with him on that Freeze Cracker site that he used to help run with this other dude that made him feel like he was an actual gaming journalist, would try to get the whole channel taken down. And there was a couple of instances where he got wrapped up in that, even though he wasn't the one doing it himself. Someone else was doing it on his behalf, but it besmirched his reputation, and he's guilty to this day about the fact that he was involved in it, and so a lot of that is just deleted. And one of the people in question was P-Bone34. The reason P-Bone disappeared out of nowhere and no one knew where he was or what happened to him was because one of Sam's cronies had gotten a hold of a picture of P-Bone's girlfriend and had made it their channel background. And he was basically like, I'm going to embarrass your girlfriend if you don't kill your channel completely. He blackmailed him. And it ended up ruining Sam's reputation in the community for a long time. There was back then, we had a line that you wouldn't cross. And if you crossed that line, then everyone would ostracize you. No one would reply to your videos. No one would watch your videos. And it would effectively kill your channel. It happened to Truth Setting You Free. That's just the way it was. There were certain lines that you didn't cross. And Sam indirectly crossed that line, and it cost him. And to this day, he feels bad about it, but it happened. It is what it is. Now, I took a while explaining that, so let me scroll up and catch up. Let's see here. Were any of the Weapon Wheel podcast a part of the console war stuff back then? I assume you mean the El Presidor era. Broken Games HD was around, but he didn't engage in the Trey stuff, per se. Black Bond did. Jack Move Johnny was not around at all. Hard 8 wasn't around at that point yet either. I mean, he might have had a channel back then, but he wasn't engaging with anything we were doing. He was kind of off on his own, doing his own thing, if he was around yet at that point. So really, the only one that was heavily involved in it during that era was Black Bond. Is the Crumb side going to be talked about? It'll be talked about more during the 7th era. Let's see here. What was the video where you were riding in your car listening to that rap? That was Omega Loser. That was a rap of Omega Losers. And I told him he was asking for people to film themselves driving around in places playing that music with their windows rolled down. And so I did that as a gag for him. I agree with that 2-7. I don't like to look up the story. Prez told the Xbox gaming nerds to wrap a wet towel around their Xbox to keep it from overheating. Bill, if you watch my episode, you'll see that El Presidor didn't come up with that. That was something that happened spontaneously on YouTube, where people were actually wrapping their Xboxes in towels to get them to start functioning again. You know, if you got Red Ring of Death, some people found that you could wrap your Xbox in a towel, and it would, the overheating of it, the poor circulation, would cause some kind of a reset, and then it would work for another 10 minutes or so. But it wasn't a real fix. And really, most likely, all it was doing was just kind of sucking the heat out of the unit itself, causing the expansion of the plastic to shrink back in to where things weren't as much out of an alignment and you didn't get the red ring. But it wasn't a real fix. And he was making fun of that people were telling each other, hey, if you want to get your Xbox working again, turn it on and wrap it in a towel until it shuts itself off. That really did happen. Now, El Presidor has legit issues. I don't remember the particulars of it, but he had I know he had a head injury at some point, and in some of his videos you can see he has this massive scar that runs across the back of his head. And he had said, now again, you have to take everything he says with a grain of salt, but he did say that he had, a head injury and that he had never quite been the same since then. I mean, he's described himself as a mental patient, but there was a time, and I'm not the one who did it, but there was a time where Prez got his docs dropped, and whoever it was that dropped his docs actually reached out to his remaining family members that were still alive, and they were the ones that let it slip that the house he was living in was left to him by a dead relative, I'm assuming his mother or his father, that no one else in the family will really talk to him anymore because he's not right in the head, that the family refers to him as Chucky. To them he's Chucky. That's where all that came from, was the guy that dropped his docs. And I don't remember who it was that dropped them. All of it used to be in a video that got taken down a couple of years ago. But they were confirmed as his docs. So it's been common knowledge for years. And I haven't given out I'm respecting him. I'm not going to be showing a picture of his house or showing where he lives or what his full name is or any of that crap. I just thought it was funny to mention that some of his family refers to him as Chucky, because the last name you could possibly think of when you watch an El Presidor video is Chucky, and yet there you are. Will we see Gamer Nate? Possibly. During the Crumbside / 7th era. Although I didn't really have a whole lot of interaction with Gamer Nate. Not a whole lot at all. But then again, I didn't think much of him to begin with. Remember Chad Warden, living legend. You just outed yourself to everybody that you have not watched episode 2 of Trey for Life. Exposed. Exposed. Why does Omega hide his face? Because he has he has actual non-Omega rap music that he puts out, and he doesn't want people associating Omega with his non-Omega music. That's why he hides his face. Hey, Tokes, what's going on? What happened to Hard 8? Hard 8's still around. He has his own podcast now. I don't remember what it's called. Hard 8 and I don't get along because I can't help but troll him every time I see him. And so he's blocked me from everything. I'm blocked from his Twitter. You name it, he's blocked me. 7th, would you ever do your own version of the Video Game Awards? No, too much work, and who gives a shit? I'm so glad I never owned a 360. I still own a 360. I mean, they fixed it with the full revision model. People thought they fixed it with the Elite. The Elite was still broke as hell. Everyone was talking about the Jasper chip. The Jasper chip will fix everything. The Jasper chip didn't fix nothing. It wasn't until they came out with the complete revision that was a totally different shape. It was smaller. Everyone called it the Xbox 360 Slim at the time. That was when the red ring was finally fixed. Not with any of the previous ones that had the original case. Who was more inaccurate? Dr. Dre? I think you mean Dr. Trey. Dr. Trey was more accurate than Black Baron because Black Baron was basically the Wii equivalent of El Presidor. He didn't actually know much of anything. He was just good on the microphone. Dr. Trey had some actual knowledge. True, a lot of it was just from him reading wiki articles, but still, he actually went out and learned stuff so that he would sound like he knew what he was talking about. Black Baron didn't do that. And Black Baron didn't have much of a gaming background or history aside from, the Wii. I would try to talk to him about NES and whatnot, and he'd be clueless. Clueless. El Presidor is not any kind of gaming bro. He's a casual. He will tell you that too. He is a casual. And he has said so on camera. He just likes shooters. And he mainly likes shooters because he likes to piss off the people he's playing against more than anything else. Hi, Smithy. Did you see his rants about parents locking their kids in a cage? I don't know if I watched that one or not. When does episode 3 drop? Monday. Remember when Gamer Nate threatened to cut a man's throat with a knife? No, because like I just said, I didn't really watch or interact with Gamer Nate all that much. What happened to Zephyrnix? Zephyrnix's reputation was destroyed. He still was making videos up to a couple of years ago, but his audience was more or less gone. And there was a couple of reasons for that. The first one was that he had uploaded a video to Xtube, or somebody had uploaded a video to Xtube proving that he had been, he had always talked about how he was married and everything. Well, if he was married, he was being unfaithful to his wife. Because he had uploaded video of him having relations, full screen, uncensored relations with this hideous troll of a fat white woman. And it got leaked to the community. And so, of course, everyone in the community saw it. And then I exposed him for faking various things to try to intentionally destroy the reputation of MVP Deadly Messiah New York. He faked being flagged. He faked being arrested by his local cops, which was a whole other thing. And I exposed him on both of those, and it kind of destroyed his reputation. No one really cared what he had to say much after that. I'd like to see what your thoughts are on the games of the year and see your critique about other websites claiming this game is the best. I remember you did that back then, loved it. Yeah, it's just... It's all just a commercial now. And there's just not really a whole lot of a point to it. To me, it just feels like a tremendous waste of time. Do you remember when Fat Gamer threatened to beat someone with a ball bat? Yeah. Well, Fat Gamer also has some mental issues. And I'm not going to get into what they are. If you've watched Fat Gamer long enough, you know what they are. I learned my lesson on outing what a person's mental illness was with Tokes, because that was what pissed Tokes off so much with me. That's what inspired the whole Tokes and his cousin video, was because, yes, I did, typical stuff like saying that he was called Tokes because he was token up on drugs, the usual kind of trash talking stuff. But at the same time, Tokes had been one of those folks that didn't want to have to remember a whole bunch of different usernames. And so he would basically create the exact same profile on every website that he frequented. And so out of curiosity one day, when me and him had been going back and forth, I searched for his user ID, and I found him on a bunch of sites. And one of them was for a support group for the condition that he suffers from. And one of them was for a dating site wherein he revealed in his profile a certain predilection for a certain type of female. And I outed those in my next video to him, and that's what legit made him mad. And so that's when I reached out to him behind the scenes and apologized, because I'd kind of stepped over a line there, and I privated that video and eventually deleted it. And he and I have been cool ever since. But, I was still relatively new to the game then. And so I'm still just in pure troll mode, and I'm thinking, whatever I can dig up to really hit the hardest. And, that's the only time I've ever done anything like that. Now, there have been times where people who are being harassed by somebody have reached out to me and asked me to dig up someone and let them know who that person really is. I haven't done that in years, but back in the day, people would regularly come to me because they knew I had a background in researching anti-fraud and background information and stuff like that. And so they'd have me dig up dirt on somebody that was harassing them, and I would provide the information, but I never actually used any of it myself. But eventually I lost all of my access to that kind of software when the licenses finally expired. A few years after I'd left that particular company. So I can't actually engage in that kind of activity anymore. But back in the day, that's why Black Bond and certain others would refer to me as Officer 7th. Because if you were doing shady stuff in the community, I could find out who you were. It didn't take that much. You just had to have the right access to the right apps. What are your thoughts on people realizing Starfield is just mid? It's the same thing every time. It happens on both sides. They're not going to admit that they overhyped it, so they will, fight to the death to convince you that they didn't overhype it, and that all the things that everyone else in the world is complaining about aren't real issues, but fanboyism from the other side. It's the same thing over and over and over again. Will you ever try VR gaming? I've tried VR gaming. I haven't played anything on the PlayStation VR 2 because it hasn't left 8's room, really, since he got it, except for me to watch him in the game room play a little bit of Resident Evil Village in VR on it. But, I have played VR games before. It's kind of a give or take thing with me. I can take it or leave it. They're fine for what they are, but it's not something that I have a tremendous fascination with. They don't make me sick or anything. To me, they're not as deep as just a regular game. So, will you watch the upcoming God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn shows? Eventually, but I'm not going to be, chomping at the bit to watch them when they first drop or nothing. 8th will come and go, Ultra Steel. Just get used to it. 8th will come and go. Blackie Lebowski versus Hooge. Who was more messed up? Oh, I would say Hooge, except that Hooge never held up a firearm on camera and threatened to use it. As far, at least with Blackie, he was consistent in his batshittery, okay? Hooge was all over the place. You never knew which Hooge you were going to get from one moment to the next. That's why it was driving Infinite Retro so nuts. Because, Hooge would feed him a line, and Hooge would be nice and balanced Hooge in private to Retro, but then he would go batshit with everybody else in the community. And then Retro would get caught in the middle because people were like, this guy's an absolute nut job. Why are you friends with this guy? And so it was constantly getting Retro stuck in the middle. And so when Retro tried to reason with him, then he went off on Retro too. And so then you had the whole Hooge versus Retro thing, which most of the stuff on Infinite Retro's side is gone because he deleted all of his Trey Brotherhood stuff years and years and years ago when he went back to PC. But even so, he's privated his channel out to where there's nothing on his channel now. And his Baldic Games channel is completely gone. Wait a minute. Magic powers. 7th keeping the peace, that's right. Junaid187, hello, with a clap. Hello. How's it going, sir? How is 8th liking Armored Core 6? Well, last time I talked to him, he said he was really enjoying it. 7th, I noticed modern-day Nintendo fans aren't as fanboyish as they were during the Wii U era. For example, I've seen them criticizing the new Zelda and the Switch online interface. Why could this be? You've never seen... I think it's because on the inside they understand that Nintendo got out of the console market. And that Nintendo is now in the handheld market, but have been trying to convince everybody that the Switch is a console when it's not. It's a handheld you can plug into your TV. And whereas, console war stuff has been going on for years and years and years, decades even, there's never really been a handheld war. There never really was you'd have a couple of guys every now and again out in the cafeteria debating over whether or not the game gear was better than the Game Boy. But it was a very rare thing, and even when, you saw a little bit of it with the DS versus the PSP, but not really all that much because everyone was too busy fighting 360 versus PS3. And I think now that Nintendo has gone pure handheld, the passion isn't there anymore. Now it's all about shilling. So you have all these pro Nintendo channels that, they will speak negatively about something, but here's the real thing, you see. If they speak negatively about anything that Nintendo does, then they run the risk of losing their Nintendo ambassadorship, where they get all this free stuff. See, that's what happened to Wood Hawker, Beat 'em Ups, the channel Beat 'em Ups. He had some negative things to say about a Switch game, and Nintendo revoked his ambassadorship. So no more free stuff and download codes and whatnot for him. That's why they don't do it. Because all of them their channels are based around shilling, but if they give an honest opinion about something that Nintendo puts out that's lackluster, down the tubes you go. Luckily, Wood has an audience that doesn't care, and so he hasn't lost any of his audience over it. He's bigger now than he ever was. So it didn't really affect the success of his channel. It just means that if he wants to review a Nintendo game, he actually has to go out and buy it. Hooge the Stooge. Tokes, I explained what happened with Zephyrnix earlier. Seventh, I think that's true regarding Switch as a handheld argument. Also, what I think dropped their morale was the failure of the Wii U. Their intent on defending is what... Partly, but I think it's mainly because all of them, after the Wii U, all of them just kind of transferred from console warring to being shills for Nintendo, and they don't want to risk losing their ambassadorship and getting all their free little goodies. Ash Sky 85, PS3 and 360 got really heated back in the early 2000s here on YouTube. You don't say, Ash. You might want to start watching my Trey for Life series. That's now 2 episodes deep and about to be 3 episodes deep. Thanks for watching my content. Also, that's an interesting thing. A lot of you guys exposing the fact that you're not actually watching my stuff in the chat today. What's up with that? I thought y'all were fans, man. Now I'm hurt. And you haven't even donated anything tonight either. I'm going to eat worms and die. Also, that's an interesting thing regarding Nintendo and the Ambassador YouTube channel stuff. I'm glad you, Shokyo, and Bond were always more transparent. Yeah, I don't have any kind of deals like that. The closest thing I have to anything like that is I have a Keymailer account. So occasionally I'll get like free keys for indie games. That's it. That's all I've got. I don't have any sponsorships or any of that stuff. You know, there's no Raid Shadow Legends on my channel. No sir. No manscaping. No none of that stuff. I was bold, but Nintendo knows best. Think they don't cross the boss. I hope you're all right, Garp. What happened to Garp? He hasn't. He commented in here earlier tonight. Where did Garp go? I just figured he lost interest and dropped out of the chat. He does that. But I mean, he commented earlier. Or I thought he did. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Maybe I'm thinking of Farb. Probably thinking of Farb. Or are you making a reference to the movie The World According to Garp? Yeah, no problem. I'll catch up on all your videos for sure. Sure you will, Ash. Sure you will. Yeah. I think Nintendo doesn't like RGT from what he says. They strike his vids talking about certain Nintendo topics. I haven't had any interaction with RGT. Now, well, I've had a little bit of interaction with him on Twitter, but that's about it. Times is rough in these streets. 7th, sorry I didn't catch what you said happened to Zephyrnix. Somebody posted a video of him on XTube having carnal relations with a really fat white woman, and then I caught him faking a flag from MVP Deadly Messiah New York, and also faking an arrest with his local police, and that kind of destroyed his credibility. Well, 7th, I remember that one time near Christmas I donated $75 at least, so you can't say I've never donated. True. I watch most videos I definitely will watch, but Console Wars has a stigma, I guess. I definitely watched the last Game Room Bonanza and enjoyed your vids over the years. Well, Bill, this is more of a comedic documentary. So, I'll say this: neither of them are extremely long. One of them's 17 minutes and one of them's 22. Watch the first two episodes. If you don't like it, don't watch the rest of it. I watch the videos. It's great. It's interesting. Okay. Do you enjoy smoking the herb? No, I don't. I don't. I don't imbibe. I don't even drink alcohol anymore. Used to every 7thCast, I'd have me a Jack Daniel's hard cola, like the black cherry cola, blackjack cola, and I don't even do that anymore because of the medication that I'm on. I appreciate every donation that I get, and I don't really do that kind of thing a whole lot compared to some of the other folks on here, simply because I'm not trying to make a living on YouTube, but it does make it easier for me to make certain types of videos. And so, every time I'm planning on going to Retropalooza, hey, can you do a stream of Retropalooza? Can you show all the stuff you buy and blah, blah, blah? Everyone gets excited about seeing the deals that I make. Well, if I don't have money to make deals, I can't make those videos. You know what I'm saying? And I had a lot of unexpected expenses pop up over the summer. So, it's just very straightforward. If y'all want that kind of content, if you want to see me post videos of deals that I've made at Retropalooza, I have to have money to be able to make those deals, It's as simple as that. If one of you said, 7th, we'd like to see your review of Baldur's Gate 3 on the PS5. I wouldn't be able to do that because currently I don't have the money to buy Baldur's Gate 3 because I'm saving up for Retropalooza. And so if someone said that, then I'd say, okay, then tonight we have a donation goal of $70, and I will then go and use that money to buy Baldur's Gate, and I'll start playing it and review it. It's good that you gave up on that stuff, 7th. You're not missing out much anyway. Well, I know I'm not missing out much because I used to drink and I used to imbibe in the herb, and I don't anymore. I know exactly what I gave up. Why did you try to get that one guy busted when you said he's in the bedroom? Because I was trolling. I didn't really know if their mic was even turned on or not. It was just a gag. I mean, by that point, we already knew that the police were there, at least out in the yard, if not in the house itself. So it didn't really matter if what I said, he was going to end up enjoying a night on the police's tab either way. So 7th level, that dude Zephyrnix was all messed up, huh? Well, yeah. He had issues. A lot of people back then did. There was a lot of trying to portray yourself as something that you're not, And if you're building a fictional character, I can understand that. But, aside from doing various impersonations like Dr. Evil and stuff like that, I've never been anything other than what I am on here. I've never tried to hide my weight from anybody. I make it known that I'm a fat ass because of the medical conditions that I have and what have you. But I've lost weight, but I'm still fat. Yeah, I don't try to hide that from anybody. I don't try to make myself out to be more wealthy than I am. I'm not the type that's going to go to the bank and make a withdrawal and have them withdraw this money in ones and then show off stacks of ones or tens to try to trick gullible people into thinking that I have bukus of money. You know, I don't do that. I think it's kind of pathetic. Remember when you were accused of being in a biker gang? Oh, that was Tokes, actually. That was Tokes. And he was getting that from the fact that I used to wear a cycle jacket on camera. And the only reason I don't wear a cycle jacket on camera now is because I used to be thin and relatively fit when I started on YouTube, and now I'm too fat to fit in a cycle jacket. And that's the only reason why I don't wear one now. I've never been a biker. I've never been in a biker gang. I've never driven a motorcycle. I just like cycle jackets because it's a punk rock thing. You know, bikers are not the only ones that wear cycle jackets. It's a very popular thing in punk and in grunge, and that's why I had that leather jacket. And Tokes saw me in that leather jacket, and my head shaved, and the first thing he thought, he's in the Hells Angels or some shit. And so he was like, "Why don't you get on your Harley, rev that engine, to get that sensation that you like so much?" Seven, was the whole Crumbside era inspired by wrestling entertainment? No, the Crumbside era wasn't. The console war community was. The Crumbside is what the console war community devolved into. You know, the term Crumbside was originally coined by Hard 8, and Hard 8 wasn't around during the Trey Brotherhood era. He came after that, or at least his channel wasn't involved in it at that time. But the Trey Brotherhood was heavily inspired by pro wrestling. Heavily. As I explained in the previous episode. Seventh, what do you think about the handheld PlayStation Portal? I have no interest in it whatsoever. If it worked to where you could go anywhere with it and stream directly from your PSN account, whether you had a PS5 or not, then I might have a use for it. But it just streaming data from your PS5, no thank you. Don't need it. Do I remember when I was accused of being a former KKK member? Yes, that was Black Baron. And why? What was his basis? Because I lived in North Carolina and I didn't like living in Georgia. Which, me not liking living in Georgia didn't have anything to do with the color of people's skin in Georgia. It had to do with the fact that the rednecks that lived in Georgia were even dumber than rednecks that I grew up with, fellow rednecks that I grew up with in Tennessee. And the fact that I, would regularly have to go to downtown Atlanta as part of my work at that time. And I don't know how Atlanta is now, but back then, Atlanta was nasty. You'd drive around in Atlanta, and there were whole sections of the downtown area that literally smelled like human waste. And I don't know if it was a problem with their sewer system there or what, but you smelled it everywhere. And it was gross. And on top of that, I hated the traffic in Atlanta because I lived 30 minutes south of Atlanta. And so no matter where you wanted to go, you could want to go to some little mom and pop restaurant that was a few blocks down the street. It was a 30-minute drive, no matter where you were going. North, south, east, west, wherever you wanted to go, you're going to be in your car 30 minutes getting there and 30 minutes back. Because the road systems in Atlanta and in its surrounding boroughs has been under construction since the 70s at least. Constant, never-ending road construction. And it's obnoxious, and it's an unbearable pain in the butt to have to put up with every day. I only lasted 6 months, and I was like, screw this, I'm going back to Florida. And that's why I said I hated Atlanta. And he tried, even though we had an understanding behind the scenes, I was like, you try to outdo me, I try to outdo you. We're not going to get into personal attacks and things of that nature, aside from calling each other's names. And, you can make fun, I'll make fun of your hair, you can make fun of me for being fat, whatever you want to do, but let's not cross over a certain line. And Black Baron agreed to that. He agreed to it, like so many others before him had. But then when I got him into a corner where he didn't have any valid criticisms to throw at me, he goes to, well, he's white and hates Georgia, so he must be a white supremacist. And that's when I decided, okay, if that's the way you want it, the gloves are coming off. And I destroyed him in my reply video. And made a joke out of it by dressing up as a Southern Baptist preacher, which became known as the character Reverend 7th. And nobody knows how to do a Southern minister better than me, because I grew up in a Pentecostal church. So I know exactly how they sound. I know exactly how they do their little shtick. I grew up in it. Surrounded by it. It's also why I am now non-denominational. Those rumors scared me about you. Yeah, sure they did, Shadow Deist. What have I told you about trying to troll a troll, son? Who would you say were the 3 smartest YouTubers from the console war community back then? Me, and me. Well, I'm definitely on up there. Not trying to toot my own horn. But I'm definitely on up there. Not just in like gaming knowledge because I'm old, but I'm a fairly intelligent guy. I know I don't always show that. But, being really smart's not exactly entertaining, is it? I talk about it. I don't try to hide it. But at the same time, aside from waxing philosophical every now and again, I don't really go into a lot of extreme detail on my line of work. I'm not on here giving you tech tips and stuff like that. I'm not going into my daily line of work or whatnot. Truth Setting You Free is an intelligent individual. He just didn't really understand or didn't want to accept what the community was really about back then until it was too late. That was his shortcoming. But as far as just general IQ and technical know-how, he was way on up there. He knows his stuff too. Rev is not a dumb man by any means either, but his knowledge is more of a general slow but steady gain in life wisdom than it is technical stuff. Now, he's learned how to do more technical stuff over the years, see, but I don't want to say he's got street smarts because that doesn't really fit him. The greatest compliment that I could give Rev is that in a lot of ways, Not in some ways, but in a lot of ways, Rev reminds me of my old man. We'll leave it at that. I know you don't like sports, but will you know the champions of a particular sport through osmosis? No. I have no interest. I don't follow it. Nothing. Couldn't tell you who won even the most recent Super Bowl because I don't follow that stuff. I don't care about it. I don't read about it. If I'm out somewhere and a friend of mine starts talking about it, I instantly zone out, and I just kind of nod, and I'm not paying attention to a damn word they're saying. I'm just trying to be polite at that point. Let's see. I remember I used to like watching Baron when I was a Nintendo fanboy. Then I saw your content exposing him. I remember Black Baron made a racist Mexican joke once. That was against General G. Some kind of taco joke. I can't remember the specifics of it, but it was General G. Which I had made a Mexican joke towards General G myself, but the thing was, I actually had General G film a little clip. So immediately after the joke, it switches to General G, and General G goes, "Hi, my name is General G, and I approve this previous General G is a Mexican joke. Thanks for watching." So that was pretty funny. I don't remember which video it was. But yeah, there somewhere in one of my old videos, I cracked some kind of a Mexican joke. And it wasn't like a racist joke or anything, per se. But then immediately after it, here comes General G on the screen. I approve. This General G is a Mexican joke. And he did it like a campaign video. He was like, I approve. It was funny. It was funny. Have you noticed how lazy trolling and bait has become? It's because there's not really a whole lot of trolling going on in the community anymore. Because all they care about is getting free stuff from whoever's ass they're kissing in the corporate side of gaming, whether it be Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, whoever, and they don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize their vendor sponsorships and their AdSense with YouTube, etc., etc. Trolling in this community is mostly dead. Mostly. There'll be a little bit of it here and there, but it's mostly dead. Was it true that his wife was making $300,000 a year? Truth setting you free. I have no idea. He and I have never talked about that behind the scenes, so I have no idea. I know he worked from home doing video design. Basically the same thing that Billy from the Game Chasers does for a living. Companies would hire him to do video commercials and stuff like that. Seventh, if it was General G, I believe Baron also mentioned a jumping the border joke. Normally, I didn't mind racist jokes, but Baron's delivery on it seemed like he meant it. It was hard to tell with Baron because, you know, when Baron was on camera, it was the same as if he was cutting a promo for a wrestling show, which, you know, I did the same thing. But he would inject a lot of reality into it, and so it was kind of hard to tell where the trolling began and the real-life animosity ended with him. Hence, you know, he agreed to not cross certain lines, but then accused me of being a KKK member, you know? That's why I had to take him to school. And I'm sure that stuck in his craw pretty bad. That, you know, his life's dream was to become a successful professional wrestler on for a major organization like WWE or back then TNA or what have you. And here was this, you know, late 30s southern redneck nerd that was out promoting him on camera. Had to stick in his craw. And I know it did because he abandoned the whole console war thing for like a long time after I made that video, and he never responded to it. Oh. One hour remaining. There have been 0 donations tonight. None. Y'all don't love me no more. Anyway. Because I'm Mexican myself and some jokes about us can be funny. Well, I mean, some of it you have to kind of take with a grain of salt, Ultra Steel. Like, for example, all the animosity where they tried to get Speedy Gonzalez canceled. I have never met a person of Mexican descent who didn't love Speedy Gonzalez. Legit. Like Speedy Gonzalez was their Mickey Mouse, you know? It was white people being offended on Mexican people's behalf. And so the thing of it is that a stand-up comedian can get up on stage and say those kind of things in the right tone and get away with it because it's considered humor, satire, spoof, whatever. But a YouTuber, even if they make it painfully obvious that, you know, they're approaching this from a comedic angle, they can get canceled for that because they're not considered a comedian. And so that's why when I did that little joke, I made sure that the person it was directed towards, General G, posted within the video what he just said I think is funny and I don't find it offensive. I canceled the potential cancel before the cancel could happen. And again, it wasn't like a directly racist thing or anything like that. It wasn't on the level of what Black Baron did. Let's put it that way. It was very like tongue-in-cheek and very friendly and just kind of, pals nudging pals kind of thing, I did that with General G knowing that in his next video he could have made a joke about me sleeping with my sister. I don't have a sister, but he could have made a joke about me being a redneck who slept with his sister, and I would have gladly made a video for him. Hi, I'm the 7th level, and I approved this rednecks like to screw their sisters joke. Thanks for watching. I would have been happy to do that for him. Don't forget you came in an hour late. I know, I've been here almost 3 hours. I started at 7. We have an hour left, and it'll be 10. That's 3 hours. I know my math. Clean frame. I'm keeping track. Art the Clown versus Freddy Krueger. Art the Clown is definitely more bloody. I think I like them equally. Do you ever interact with Spawn? I've never interacted with Spawn Wave. I like Spawn Wave, but I've never interacted with him. He's kind of in a different part of the community there. He's in a different part of the community. Because there's little cliques and subsections within the whole modern gaming, retro gaming communities now. And I'm not a part of the little subgroup that he rolls in. There are some of them who know me, like Oh No It's Alex, he knows me. Kofi, the guy that runs the Press Start podcast or whatever, he knows me. RGT knows me, but only through Twitter. But Spawn Wave, I've never had any interaction with. I doubt Spawn Wave even knows who I am. However, there are guys that are really big nowadays who were fans of me back then. One of them is Review Tech USA. He was a fan of my show back then. Another one is that really popular retro guy, Ant Dude. I actually met Ant Dude at the very first Retropalooza I ever went to 6 years ago, and he remembered me. And he's like, I used to watch you all the time. You and El Presidor and Black Bond. And I was like, really? I'm rather shocked by that, but okay. I appreciate it. Glad you watched. Oh yeah, Seventh Black Baron was even on national television for something. He showed up on the Spike Game Awards. He got invited to the Spike Game Awards because he made this viral video about hating on Nintendo for something to do with Zelda. I don't remember what it was, but he got invited, and then Zach Levi kind of dissed him because he was running his mouth, and they were getting nervous about what he was saying on a live camera, and he started to reach for Zach Levi's microphone, and he was like, don't touch the mic. And then they kind of cut Baron off. Because at the time, he was standing over the guy who runs the Game Awards, and he was insulting him. He was cutting a promo on the guy and trying to stick his finger in his face, and Zach Levi just kind of cut him off. El Presidor's been on national TV at least twice. He was on a science show for his knocking down trees thing, and they were explaining the science of why El Presidor was able to knock down these trees, which he was able to knock them down because he only knocked down dead trees. And then he showed up on Tosh.0. He wasn't a Web Redemption on Tosh.0, but Tosh showed one of his knocking down tree videos. So he's been on national TV at least twice that I'm aware of. What is General G up to nowadays? I thought he was planning a He posted a video like in 2020 or 2021, and nobody watched it, and so he just kind of gave up on it. He waited too long, man. He waited too long. He don't live far from here. He's 3 hours from here. He lives in Houston. He was supposed to meet up with me at one of the Retropaloozas, and he got too drunk that weekend and ended up hungover and didn't show up. Now, every year that I go to the one up in Arlington, I reach out to Shokio and Blackbuster Critic and let them know that I'm going to be there because they live up in that Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I'm like, come to Retropalooza, we can hang out. And Shokio said that this year, he said, that sounds good, I'll tell my brother. Whether they actually show up or not is another story. They haven't done so far. They haven't done so far. Scroll up, I told a really good joke. You're not the boss of me, Clean Frame. Yeah, that's kind of a crappy joke, Clean Frame. I'm not going to repeat that. Not because I find it offensive, but just because I don't think that one's all that funny. And it's also really old. Did I see the story of the Florida man who lived with his rotting corpse in their mobile home this week? I don't know if you did or not. I don't really read the news, man. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Wouldn't be the first time that they got a story about some guy living with a corpse in his house. I remember there was a story a few years ago about a guy whose mother died, and he basically mummified her and kept her in the house so he could keep collecting the Social Security checks. So, not exactly a new thing. Remember when, Baron threatened to beat him up live on TV. Did you ever meet El Presidor in real life? No. I've never been farther north than Louisville, Kentucky, so getting up to Youngstown, Ohio is not, it's not on my bucket list. Philip the Assyrian, a.k.a. P-Bone34 is in the chat. Hi, P-Bone. How's it going? He don't like to be called P-Bone anymore, by the way. He likes to be Philip. I'm kind of still surprised people remember me. I'll be honest. I didn't think I made an impact like you did and other big game YouTubers. You were big with us because we liked the impressions that you did because they were all the same impression but with different props. And that just kind of cracked us up that, you know, one day you'd be MLD and you were just wearing a nerdy shirt with a ball cap. And then, you know, the next minute you were Tokes, but it was like the same accent and everything, just a different outfit and a cane. You know, all your impressions were the same. It's just the props that changed. And that's what, you know, what we found funny about it. But yeah. I mean, think about it. If you hadn't had an impact, I wouldn't have remembered you, you know? And so many other people in here remember you. Blackbuster Critic also lived... Did he move to Houston? Because it was my understanding that he still lived in the Dallas area with his brother. Seventh, I sent messages to El Presidor and Champloo about your Trey Brotherhood documentary. Have you heard from them? No. It's like I told you before, with El Presidor's mind being the way it is, I doubt he even remembers who I am. And Champloo, I wasn't even aware of the fact that he was still making videos on his old Dub Central channel. So if he has a new channel beyond his Dub Central channel, I wouldn't even know about it. And even then, me and Champloo never had a tremendous amount of interaction. We had a little bit, but, you know, I wasn't interacting with him on the regular like I was with Rev and El Presidor and Dumars and Truth and all those guys. See, Tokes, that's the reason I don't need a Steam Deck. I don't go on big long road trips anymore except for to Retropalooza either in Arlington or in Houston. That's pretty much the only places I go anymore where I'm going to be on the road. And if I'm going to be on the road, I'm not carrying around some big bulky Steam Deck. I'm carrying around my little Retroid Pocket 3 Plus that I got for $160. That I've shown on camera multiple times now. This little baby right here. If I'm going to be playing on the road, I'll either bring that or I'll bring my Vita, depending on what I'm playing. This has all my favorite arcade games and all my favorite NES, SNES, Genesis, TurboGrafx 16. It has all of that on here. I don't need a Steam Deck. Do you remember the last concert you went to? Oh, yeah, it's been a long time. The last concert I went to was... It was a 4th of July concert at Busch Gardens. 8th was like 3 going on 4. And it was Dennis DeYoung and the Sounds of Styx. It was the former lead singer of Styx, doing all of Styx's biggest hits, like Come Sail Away and what have you, Mr. Roboto and all that stuff. And that was at the big, their big outdoor stage area at Busch Gardens. They'd put on a big concert every 4th of July and then do the fireworks. And we had Florida resident passes to Busch Gardens, so we could go to Busch Gardens whenever we wanted. And so we'd get there early, ride some roller coasters, take 8th on all the kiddie rides, and then we'd go over and lay out a blanket, sit down in the grass, watch the concert, and watch the fireworks. That was the last time I was at a concert. No, that's not true. The last time I was at a concert was in 2014, and it was Cobra and the Lotus, Def Leppard, and Kiss up in North Carolina. Now, 8th has been to a couple of concerts since then. He's seen Dragon Force here in Austin, and a month or two ago, he went to see Breaking Benjamin down in San Antonio with his friends. How is it? Clicky buttons. Has good buttons on it. Battery life is like 6 or 7 hours, I think. Who's more knowledgeable about gaming? You, Review Tech USA, or Blackbuster Critic? I would say me. Because I'm older than both of them. I know Rich looks like he's older than me, but I'm older than him. I'm older than Rich, and I'm certainly older than Blackbuster. I've been around for more of it, so I have more hands-on direct knowledge of stuff than they do. I've been around, you know. What is a bad man? I've been around, you know. Seventh, have you played the new KO the Kangaroo? Yes, I have. I'm not a fan. I have it on PS5. I'm not a fan. But then again, I wasn't a huge fan of the original either. Ever played Firefighter FD18 on PS2? No. Ugh. My knuckles are hurting, lads. My knuckles are causing me problems. Why you no work for Disney anymore? They changed their attendance policy and retroactively fired me for breaking the attendance policy. They had an attendance policy where you could take a certain amount of time off for the death of a loved one. And my father died, so I took that amount of time off. And then they changed the attendance policy and cut the amount of time you could take for a dead relative in half and fired me for violating it. That's Disney for you. Seventh, I just rewatched the 2011 video of Baron looking like he was going to hurt the Spike VGA CEO. I see him trying to grab the mic too. He's got to be playing around. Yeah, he was doing his pro wrestler thing. You know, Black Baron has always been about promoting himself. And so every time that he made a video, what he was really doing was creating a little commercial for himself that he could show as his promo cutting skills for all these little indie wrestling promotions that he was working for at the time. And trying to build himself up to where he could go to TNA or WWE at that time. I mean, you know, he's been on AEW Dark a few times at this point. I think he's actually won one match. Disney is a crappy company to work for, man. You get a lot of perks, but their salaries are several percentage points lower than the industry average. In pretty much every industry that you could work for within Disney, you're going to be underpaid. And what they'll claim is that for you to understand how much money you actually make from Disney, you have to take your base salary and then add your medical and all the little perks that we give you, because we give you $9,000 a year worth of perks. In other words, you know, 50% off of a hotel and free park passes and stuff like that. And to which my reply was, okay, I'll never go to the parks or stay in a hotel again. Pay me $9,000 more a year if it's the same thing. They didn't like that. I lasted there 2 years, and then they did that change in the attendance policy, and I was retroactively fired for something I was approved for 3 months before. That's the kind of crap that Disney does. And that was 20-something years ago. It's even worse now. No, it's almost 20 years ago. It was 19 and a half years ago. Yeah, Barron was a big fan of the N-word and the F-word. He used both in almost every sentence that came out of his mouth. Some stick-up-the-butt white lady on Twitter said that people with backpacks are not well off. She said it way worse. What's your take on her god-awful take? I don't think it makes any sense. When I go to Retropalooza, I regularly wear a backpack to store up all of the stuff that I buy. Does that mean I'm poor? Then why am I, after my annual bonus, why am I grossing 80 plus grand a year? Is over 80 grand a year poor now? Doesn't make any sense. The only reason I'm not doing great right now is that my car is $500 a month and they keep upping my rent here. If my rent was more stable, and my car was paid off, I'd be set, man. I wouldn't have to ask you guys for a dime for any of this stuff. Because once I get my car paid off and I get some of these other bills paid off that I haven't paid off because they keep getting upping me on my rent and I keep having all these medical problems. And my medical insurance kind of sucks, so it doesn't cover as much as I used to get covered when I had an HMO. I'm on a crappy PPO now. If all of that was resolved, I'd be clearing after bills and after taxes somewhere in the realm of $2,300 a month that I could just put on whatever the heck I wanted. It's not like that right now, which is why I'm in the situation that I'm in. Well, water under the bridge, Philip. I don't regret my time working for Disney because it was quite an experience. Walking around in those parks and those hotels and being made to feel like you own the place and have the run of it. I mean, anywhere I wanted to go, my badge would get me in there. Yeah, I went down into the underground area under the Magic Kingdom and toured around in there and saw all of that, the Utilidor. All of that secret stuff. I got to see it. And, we would just, anytime we wanted, we'd just drive up there, go in the park, ride all the rides, get discounts at all the restaurants. If we wanted to stay overnight, we'd have a deal with the hotel. We got discounts on all the merchandise too. And so you really did start to feel like, this is my theme park. Because you could come and go whenever you wanted. It was like the ultimate expression of going out to the backyard and swimming in your pool in the backyard, or swinging on the swing set in your backyard, only on like this massive scale. I had the run of the place. Eighth effectively grew up at Disney World. Mickey Mouse taught him how to walk. Oh, there's all sorts of weird stuff that go on at Disney. They had a guy that was working there as, I want to say he was a janitor of some sort. And you know that suite that's in the actual castle at Walt Disney World, that you can't book it, you can only win it as a prize. It's like this nice princess suite that's in the actual castle. That didn't used to be there. Used to be back in the 70s, that's where the actual phone operators for Disney were. And then eventually it became just like a storage area. And then it just kind of got cleared out and there wasn't anything in there. And they weren't using it for nothing. And there was a janitor who discovered that over time a hole had formed in the floor of that room that just happened to look down directly underneath to the room beneath it. And it just so happened that the room beneath it was where all of the female character actors' dressing room. And so this individual set up a camcorder on a tripod with a VCR and would film those girls changing in and out of their princess costumes and their Mickey Mouse costumes and what have you. And sometimes he would go up there on his lunch break and watch it live while he was whistling while he worked. He got caught, he got fired, swept under the rug. Nobody knows where those tapes are. There are people that die on Disney property all the time that you never hear about. Some of them you hear about if it happens like way out in the public and for all the world to see. Because it happens in the park. Like when Pluto got run over by a parade float at the Magic Kingdom back in the early 2000s. I was there that day. But there's a lot of people that die on property that you don't hear about. Because Disney's policy, at least back then, was nobody dies on Disney property. And so what they would do is they'd have their Reedy Creek emergency response team pick up the person wherever it was that they died, and even though they already know they're dead, they would perform CPR on them until they got them to a hospital and then declared them dead once they were off Disney property. So they could legally say no one dies on Disney property. But sometimes, of course, it doesn't work out that way. It happens out in the public where there are witnesses, and they can't do that. One point was a gentleman who walked into Epcot, looked up at Spaceship Earth, pulled out a gun and blew his own brains out in front of Spaceship Earth. There's a lot of people that have died of heart attacks on Mission Space. There's people that have drowned in the River of Americas. Just all sorts of deaths. But the ones that you really never hear about are the ones who die in their sleep in the hotel rooms. Now, here's what happens if somebody dies at Disney sleeping in one of the hotel rooms. Disney will coordinate with the family, find out who the funeral home is, wherever they live in the world, and Disney will pay, or at least back then, 20 years ago, they'll pay to fly that person's body to the funeral home, and will also send flowers. I don't know if they still do that now, but they did do it back then. I had to deal with that all the time because there was always some family who were booking their last vacation with a family member who was, terminal cancer or whatever. And so, I'd book them a vacation and I'd make sure that they had a motorized scooter to drive around in if they couldn't walk on their own because of the medication they were on and whatnot. Put them up in the place where they'd be absolutely the most comfortable with the least amount of travel time, blah, blah, blah. And then 3 days into their trip, I'd get a notification that that person had died in their sleep. So then I'd have to call over to the manager of the hotel, and I'd make arrangements with them to have the body flown out and what have you. And then the remaining family members would then be asked, do you want to continue with your trip, or do you want to cut it off here and refund them for whatever they weren't going to spend? And 9 times out of 10, the family would stay because they would say that's what the dead relative would be that they'd want them to finish out their vacation. God honest truth. No, it's not true that Walt Disney's head is frozen somewhere. Walt Disney was cremated. He was cremated and he's buried his ashes are interred at a cemetery out in Hollywood somewhere. It's out in California somewhere. The kid that got killed by an alligator, that didn't happen in the park. That happened at the Grand Floridian Resort Hotel. All of the resorts that are actually on the Seven Seas Lagoon, which is that lake that's right in front of the Magic Kingdom, where the monorail goes all the way around. There's 3 hotels there. There's the Contemporary, that's the one where you see the monorail actually go through the middle of the building. Then there's the Polynesian, which is a Hawaiian islands inspired hotel, and then there's a Grand Floridian, which looks like a hotel from like the early 1900s. Each of them have a beach on that lagoon. In fact, the Polynesian, when it first opened in the 70s, it actually had an artificial wave machine, and they'd have surfing contests. But the wave machine was always breaking down, and so eventually they just shut it down and never used it again. But the machine's still down there. You can see it on a clear day. But that lake is completely man-made. That lake did not exist. Bay Lake, behind the Contemporary Resort, that's a real lake. But the Seven Seas Lagoon, it's a fake lake. They built that for the parks. At its deepest point, it's only 15 feet deep. Just deep enough so that boats can go across it. But over the years, occasionally an alligator gets in there. And so they're constantly having to spend money to have animal control come out there and remove animals from that area. And, you were told when you check into those resorts that you can use their beach, but you're not to go into the water. Because it's not for swimming, it's for looks. It's not salt water, it's not the freaking ocean, it's an artificial lake that has all the same kind of bacteria that you would be exposing yourself to diving into any freshwater lake. Most likely worse because it's man-made and has God knows what kind of pollutants in it from Disney riding their boats back and forth across it every day with people dumping God knows what off the side of the boat. Well, alligators were in there, and this kid got a little bit too close to the water, and his parents weren't paying close attention to him, and a gator came up out of the water and grabbed him and killed him. That's what happened. Ironically, going to download this podcast so I have something to listen to on my flight to Walt Disney World tomorrow. Yeah, best of luck with that. I have no intention of ever going back, not in its current state, because they nickel and dime you every chance they get. Have fun having to pay a fee every day to use their phone app so you can book your rides. Have fun with that. Have fun having to pay for your parking every day, even if you're staying at a Disney resort. Have fun with that. I ain't going back to there anytime soon. Don't forget to download the videos I uploaded. I think you forgot. Okay, I'll do that tonight. 7th, who is the sexiest WWF female wrestler to you? My favorite female wrestler from WWE would have been Lita. I liked Lita. I also liked McCool, the one that ended up marrying The Undertaker, but my favorite was always Lita. 7th, I made it home. Okay. Didn't know you'd left. Any hobbies other than gaming that you're into? Well, guitar, obviously. Big movie buff. Used to read a lot. Don't read as much as I used to. Because the amount of free time that I have is very limited because of the nature of my job. And so I have to pick and choose. And usually I have time to, watch a movie or watch a show, play a video game, work on a YouTube video, but I don't have time to sit and read a book. Like, I haven't read the last 5 or 6 Stephen King books, and I used to be a Stephen King fanatic back in the day. Bill, it's the Polynesian, the Grand Floridian, and the Contemporary. How old was the kid? It was a toddler, like 3 or 4 years old. A little kid. Staying on property so I can walk into Epcot. Genie Plus is a scam. Yes, Genie Plus is a scam. A lot of what Disney does nowadays is a scam. I do like staying on property, but it's way too expensive now, even if you're staying in one of the value resorts. So if you're wanting to be within walking distance of Epcot, then I'm assuming that you're staying somewhere over in what used to be called the downtown Disney area, or the Disney Marketplace. So like the Yacht Club, the Boardwalk, the Saratoga Springs, one of those over there, I'm assuming. I know that property well, man. I know that property well. If you were staying at a moderate for that, then the moderate you'd be staying at would be the Caribbean Beach, because the Caribbean Beach has the skyline that goes directly over to Epcot. Of course, the skyline didn't exist when I worked there, but I still know the property well enough to know that. I've stayed in most of the hotels there. You know, the Boardwalk. The Saratoga didn't exist when I was there, but I've stayed at the Boardwalk. I've stayed at the Yacht Club. I've stayed at the Port Orleans Riverside and the Port Orleans French Quarter. I've stayed at the Caribbean Beach. I've stayed at what's the name of that one? The Mexican themed one that's a God, I can't think of the name of that. Coronado Springs. I've stayed at Coronado Springs. I've stayed at all the values, including the Pop Century Resort. I've never stayed at the Animation Resort. Originally, the Animation Resort was going to be the second wing of Pop Century, and then they had a big financial decline, and so that whole building that's now the Animation Hotel sat empty and abandoned for years before they finally turned it into the Animation Hotel, but it was originally going to be a value resort. I've stayed at the Contemporary. I've stayed at the Wilderness Lodge. I have not stayed at the Animal Kingdom Lodge. I've not stayed at the Polynesian. We always wanted to stay at the Polynesian, but we always ended up getting a deal at the Contemporary instead. Same thing with the Grand Floridian. I've ate dinners at the Grand Floridian, but I've never stayed there. I think that's about it. I mean, there's more than that, but I think that about covers most of it. The ones that anybody actually care about. And no, I haven't stayed at the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser that's closing this month either. Sir, will you and Eighth watch The Nun 2? When it's on streaming, I ain't going to the theater to see it. Disney World is anonymous with inflation. Sure. Did you hear about the story about the kid who fell off the Roger Rabbit ride? No. I did witness, and I've told this story before, when I was about 7 years old, I saw a kid fall off of the teacup ride in Fantasyland and got his head pinned under the teacup. And my dad, who wasn't riding, and my uncle, who wasn't riding, walked over to the operator's booth and was banging on the window trying to get them to stop the ride. They were on a phone, not paying any attention. My dad elbowed the window and smashed the window and grabbed him by the shirt and said, "Shut off the ride!" And they shut the ride off. And then my dad and my uncle went over there, and the kid was unconscious. And they bent down and lifted that teacup off because the kid's head was pinned under it. They lifted it up off its frame and broke the ride, and pulled that kid out, and he was still alive. I don't know what happened to him. He could have died later on that day. I don't know. But he was still breathing when my dad and my uncle pulled him out from under it. I'll never forget that. But yeah, the ride was down for the rest of the day because they actually broke whatever was holding the teacup to its underworkings. They just reached down, the two of them, and lifted that thing up and just snapped it right off the frame to get him out from under there. But again, my dad was a cop, my uncle was a firefighter. This was what they did. So, yeah. Staying at the Boardwalk. Boardwalk's a nice place. Beach Club's nice too. Beach Club, Yacht Club. They had crazy deals to where a villa costs less than a regular room rate. Not surprised. You're probably not going to experience much in the way of lines there either. You might not have to worry about the Genie Plus app because those parks have been empty for months. What movie you're going to go see next? I just saw The Equalizer and it was good. I don't know, man. Nothing's on my radar right now. Everything that I cared about really has been delayed. The next movie I was excited to see was Dune Part 2, and it got delayed to 2024. So it's most likely that I won't be going to the theater anymore this year. I saw lots of weird stuff with my dad. I mean, my dad wanted me to know early on what the world was really like. I mean, those of you who've been watching me for years and years, I used to, in exchange for a $20 donation, I'd tell a true story about my dad. I don't know if y'all remember that or not, but he wanted me to know what the world was really like at a young age. He'd take me on ride-alongs almost every Sunday. He'd pick me up from church, put me in the squad car, and he'd take me patrolling with him, which was crazy if you think about it, considering how much even back then cops were hated. He could have been driving by and some guy decided, I'll show that cop and pull out a gun and fire at him, and it could have hit me. But, I mean, I'm not saying that he took me into any, live firing situations, He was a supervising lieutenant by that point, so mostly his day was, checking in to make sure that his guys were doing what they were supposed to do and picking up their reports at the end of the day, because they didn't have computers in their squad cars back then. But on occasion, we would have to actually answer a call. And one time we had to go to an adult bookstore because the bookstore was robbed. And the first time I saw a dead body outside of a funeral home was with him, because we got a report of a bad smell and some old lady had died behind a house, a homeless lady trying to sleep under some bushes, and she froze to death. Several times I happened to be in the car when he would get involved in high-speed chases. So he would pull a Buford T. Justice on me. He'd be, "Hang on, boy, it's hot pursuit time," and he'd throw his arm like this across me, even though I had my seatbelt on, and he'd be driving with his left hand and holding his arm across me with his right, and we're going like full speed down the middle of downtown Chattanooga chasing some dude. Happened one time with a guy that he had robbed the Zales jewelry store, and Dad happened to be nearby, and we were right behind this dude, just barreling down through downtown Chattanooga. And here I am, I'm like 10 years old, watching this through the windshield. Excited as hell, loving every second of it, not realizing that, I was in a literal life or death situation. But at the same time, Dad was like a masterful driver when it came to stuff like that. He had all that defensive driving stuff down to a T. He was an expert at it, and he was the one that taught me how to drive. Seventh, I know you like to lead a battle angel. Do you like the manga? I don't read manga. I watch the anime, but I don't read manga. Eighth is the one that reads the manga. That's wild. Yeah, I used to hang out at the police service center there in Chattanooga on Amnicola Highway. Used to hang out there all the time. They have a basketball court and a gym with workout equipment in there. And Dad would need to fill out some reports or whatever, so he'd go upstairs to fill out his reports, and I'd be hanging out with the cops down on the basketball court shooting hoops, or I'd be up in the rec area. They had this big open recreation area that had like pool tables and ping pong tables and a big screen TV with all the pay channels on it with couches and stuff that you could sit and hang out and watch stuff. And I would be doing all that while he'd be filling out his reports. And, the secretaries that worked there would keep an eye on me. They like babysit me while Dad was doing his thing. And they were always like bringing me little gifts. Like, he'd bring me over, and this is when I was like real little, like 6-7 years old. He'd bring me over there and he'd be filling out his reports, and they had bought me like a Tonka truck or something like that, And I'd be playing ping pong with them, or I'd be playing pool with them, or I'd be watching HBO with them, or downstairs using the workout machines. They'd teach me how to use the weightlifting machines, or they'd take me out on the basketball court and shoot hoops with me, that kind of stuff. And then my uncle worked in the fire hall next door to the police service center, and so I was also spending a lot of time over there. And it was kind of the same thing, although they didn't have a full basketball court like the service center did. They just had a basketball hoop up in the parking lot behind the building, and they had a living room area with big screen TV with HBO and all the pay channels, with nice leather couches and recliners. And sometimes we'd have Thanksgiving dinner there. So all the firemen's wives would bring Thanksgiving food, just big long tables with full spreads. And they were always pulling pranks. Like my dad's captain one year was really proud of the fact that he had bought himself a new Volkswagen Beetle. And so they waited until he was busy, and they went down there, like 8 or 9 of them, and they picked up that Volkswagen Beetle and walked it across the service street there to the fire hall, because behind the fire hall they had one of those training towers that they would use for training recruits, where they would set it on fire and they'd have to put it out, and you'd have to run up and down the stairs carrying hoses to prove that you had the cardiovascular to handle that kind of work. That building had a freight elevator in it, so they picked up this Volkswagen Beetle and they walked it across that service road to the tower, and they carried it onto that express elevator, or that freight elevator, and they took it up to the top floor and they hid the dude's car on the roof of the fire tower. And then they went running in and told him that his car had been stolen out of the parking lot. That's the kind of shit they do. I think I told that story several times before, but yeah. I mean, sometimes the stuff that would go on there was more like Police Academy and less like Dirty Harry. Like one time downtown, there was a fountain downtown, and one of the cops, one of Dad's friends, went down there and filled it with industrial powdered soap, and it caused this flood of bubbles that was massive because he'd poured this whole big giant, multi-pound bag into this fountain, and it caused this big mess down there, and no one would point a finger, so everyone got in trouble for it. They would go down to the farmer's market and they'd buy up the rotten tomatoes that they hadn't been able to sell that day at the farmer's market, and then on the night shift they'd drive around downtown throwing rotten tomatoes at each other as they'd pass each other on the road. And that ended one night when one of them unknowingly drove past the captain when he had his window rolled down and hit the captain right in the face with a rotten tomato. I could tell stories like that for days of the crazy crap they'd get up to, and it's puerile, teenage-level Police Academy stuff. But I guarantee you, in every town where you've got cops, some of that stuff is going on. Maybe at not the level that it was in the early 80s when my dad was on the Chattanooga Police Department, because one, it was the early 80s, and two, kind of a redneck town. But yeah. 7th, I'll say this, you and your father are perfect examples why having strong traditional father figures is important for families. I'm sure 8th will turn out great. Well, 8th has already turned out great. But yeah, my childhood was a trip, because you had the crazy police stuff, the crazy fireman stuff, and then the crazy redneck stuff, like going to see my cousin who lived out on a farm, and we'd get out on his go-karts, and we'd be driving the go-karts through the cow pasture, driving over cow patties, spraying shit all over ourselves while being chased by a Brahma bull. It was real hold my beer stuff, in other words. I've fired every kind of gun and pistol you can imagine on the firing range. Rifles, assault rifles, pistols. I never fired a bazooka, but everything from 30-06 to elephant rifles to M16s, M4, AR-15, 9mm, Desert Eagle, 38 Special, 357, 44 Magnum. If it fires a bullet, I've fired it at a firing range. And archery too, because my dad was big into archery. When he went hunting, once a year he'd get in his Scout, and him and some of his friends would drive all the way to Colorado during hunting season, and they'd camp out in the woods and they'd hunt deer. And Dad didn't use a rifle; he'd use a bow and arrow. Archery. He had a great big compound bow, and at 7 years old, I had like a child-sized compound bow. My neighbor was always getting mad at me because I'd shoot them up in the air and they'd land in his yard, and he'd be afraid I was going to accidentally hit his dog. Offered to buy me archery targets for the backyard if I'd stop firing arrows in his yard, so I got free archery targets. Do you know of Terry Funk? Yeah, he passed away recently. And yes, I know Bray Wyatt passed away too. Do you collect firearms? No, I do not. My dad did. My dad had dozens upon dozens of firearms in the house. So I was trained from an early age of firearm safety. How to clean them, how to load them, how to unload them, how to store them, how to shoot them. And, but me, I never consider myself needing more than one firearm. So I have a single 9mm that's up on the shelf in that closet right now, not loaded. I have, multiple loaded magazines placed in various places throughout the house, so that no matter where I'm at, if something's going on, I can quickly grab that gun out, pop in a magazine, ready to go. 17-round magazine. Now, my dad sold his gun collection way before he passed away. He sold it when he retired and moved to Florida because he didn't want to have to transport all those firearms across state lines. I mean, sure, he just didn't want to deal with it. And so, he kept one pistol. He kept like a 38 that he kept wrapped around his ankle. And that was the only pistol that he kept. That was the only gun that he kept. He got rid of all of his rifles, his shotguns, everything. Used to carry an M16 that he had made out of spare parts in the trunk of his car. It was not a legal M16 because it was made out of spare parts that he had bought at various gun shows all over the South. And he just, I need this part, I need that part, and he made his own M16. He eventually sold it to somebody, I don't remember who, but sold all of his reloading equipment too. He had his own reloading shop in the garage. That's how he made his extra money. And he sold all of that when it got to the point where it was cheaper for people at gun shows to buy ammunition that had been imported from Mexico and China and various other places. He couldn't compete with their prices, and so he sold all of his equipment and got out. So by the time he moved to Florida, all he had was a 38 Special. Yes, he retired in the early 90s. Like 1991 or 1992, I think. Did 8th ever see some crazy stuff? No. 8th was only a year old when his grandpa passed away. So he has no memory of his grandfather at all. Aside from photos that I've shown him. And, I've got one little video that shows his grandpa's back while we're standing in line at the Haunted Mansion in Disney World. And that's the only video footage I have of him. He didn't really like getting his photo taken, and he didn't like being on camera, which makes me wonder why he bought a camcorder in the first place, but is what it is. Beretta versus Glock versus 1911 versus Sig Sauer, which is the best? I prefer Glock out of those. That being said, I don't own a Glock. Mine is a Canic 9mm. I think I paid $600 for it when I moved down here. I feel you misread my question. Did 8th ever see some crazy stuff with you like you did with your dad? No, because I'm not a police officer, and because his grandpa died before he was old enough to remember him. And Dad was already retired. He was 61 years old. I'm not a cop. He's not going to see anything crazy with me. I'm an IT guy. The craziest thing he's going to see with me is ransomware. My dad made me promise two things. He made me promise I'd never join any form of law enforcement and that I'd never join the military. I kept those two promises. I did, he didn't know it, but I did interview for the CIA many years ago. I was already heavy into social media at that point, and I think because the position I was interviewing was going to be giving me access to top secret information, they didn't like the idea of a person who was that heavy into social media having access to top secret shit. And they told me, if you get accepted for this position, it's going to require you to not be so engaged with social media there. And I wasn't cool with that, and so I didn't make it past the first interview. This was in Florida 20 years ago. No, I've never watched Manifest on Netflix. Nope. Don't know anything about that one. What's the CIA? Really? Is your work life more like Office Space or more like IT Crowd? Well, I work from home, so it's really not like either one of them. And I'm like a high-level analyst. I'm not tech support. Seven, do you think there are good a-holes? Like there's some with bad, obvious intent and some that have genuine intent to try to be blunt to your face. Yeah, there's good people that just don't have any natural rapport with people. So they come across as an a-hole even though they have the best of intentions. That is such a thing. They've just never developed a natural rapport with people. And so they always come across as abrasive or condescending or whatnot when all they're being is honest. You will run into those types repeatedly. Anyway, it's 10 o'clock. We have had 0 donations today. So this is where I'm going to be saying goodbye. I will be working on episode 3 of Trey for Life tomorrow. And it will go up on Monday. Probably in the evening, even though everyone should be off work Monday. I know that there are some who will still have to work. So I will throw it up there Monday evening so everyone has a chance to watch it. Otherwise, I will see you again, same 7th time, same 7th channel.